So let's get the recording started. Hopefully in a few minutes that'll start, and see who's on the call, who's on the Free Friday weekly Digital Nomad physician meeting. All right. Perfect. All right, guys, so I'll just kind of get started. Welcome to the Friday meeting. So this is obviously going to be uploaded to YouTube. I'll upload this to YouTube for the most part because I want other people to be able to access this. And it's going to be definitely aimed at a physician audience, anybody who is an MD, DO, medical student, or resident. I got this idea from Joshua Sheets. He's a financial advisor that I listen to, but I think he does much more than just financial advising. I think he has just a really unique and interesting view on life, etc. So for that reason, I decided, why not do that? Why not try to put on something that's free, that's once a week? And so if anybody sort of wants to join and talk and ask questions, anything medical related, anything healthcare related, whether it's consulting, whether it's medical license stuff, then I thought this would be good. This would be a great way to engage with people and answer the questions that you normally probably wouldn't be able to answer. So yeah, hopefully this is a unique opportunity for everyone. So with that, I think Tiffany is on the call. Tiffany, if you want to ask any questions, please go ahead. If not, I'll chat away a little bit more. Okay, so she says, I'm a family doc starting a coaching business. Should I incorporate my LLC, trademark my business name, or take any other legal tax steps before seeing clients? I won't have any employees. Right. So, to answer that question, it kind of depends on which state you're located in. So actual state, each state has different protection laws already. Some states have actually different requirements. You may not even be able to get by on an LLC. But because you're doing coaching, right? So you're not doing clinical medicine, as long as you're doing everything appropriately, there's no reason why there would be any issues. As far as it won't be related, it won't be somehow connected to your medical license. So in that sense, you're protected. So that each state might have a certain particular requirement as far as what you can tell a patient, what you can tell someone or a client. And for that reason, I think it would be important to investigate that a little bit. For example, in California, it's pretty straightforward. Anybody can sort of start giving nutrition advice. You don't have to be a dietitian. You don't have to have completed a dietetics course or anything like that. So I like that. In a way, you let the consumer sort of decide. But as far as incorporating, the majority of the incorporation is really just to protect you as an individual. So for example, it depends on which state you're in. It depends on how much money you have. What's your net worth, right? Do you have most of your money in a residential real estate? Do you have most of your money in trusts, irrevocable trusts? And so if your other finances are sort of well situated, you probably are not going to benefit too much from an LLC. But if a lot of your other stuff is kind of intermixed, then having an LLC or an S Corp, it all depends again on your state's requirements, can be helpful. It's just protective. One thing that a lot of attorneys talk about is piercing the corporate veil. Meaning if you run a coaching practice, but you're sort of also doing a little bit of, you're purchasing some things in your private funds into that business. If you mix the two, then it's easy for an attorney who wants to come after your private property to kind of sue you in that regard. But again, health coaching, the chance of a lawsuit is incredibly low. The kind of things you'd really be worried about in that situation would be errors and omissions. So that's E&O. Errors and omissions is a part of the law where, for example, I tell somebody that, hey, if you eat this kind of diet, you're probably going to lose weight, but then they eat that kind of diet and they get a kidney stone and they want to come after me. Well, for E&O, for that sort of stuff, it's not really a medical malpractice. So maybe the most they might get is like $500, $700. They would have to go to small claims court. Somebody would have to prove that my information was incorrect, etc. So in that sense, kind of harder to prove, but definitely a possibility. So Tim Amy, Let me unmute you. I think you got muted somehow. So go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us what kind of physician you are and what kind of questions you have.
Yeah, I'm a family medicine physician. We live in Barcelona most of the year now for the last couple of years. And I just got in this morning because in order to make money, I had to fly back to Boston for a week, do a bunch of telemedicine that was really boring because it was like 9, 10 hours a day. And then got in this morning. So it's disruptive for the family to do that. I would like, you had mentioned that some of the telemedicine companies you're with allow the physician to be overseas. And I was kind of interested in that. And then I was also interested at some of the concierge medicine opportunities because I was in practice for 20 years in Indiana, and I have patients all the time asking if they could possibly follow me. So I don't know what that would look like if it were virtual only. So 2 questions. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Don't be sorry. It's a fellow Spaniard here in, well, I guess fellow expat Spaniard. I'm in Santiago de
Yes,
Compostela, as you know, and I know we chatted a little bit. I think we chatted. And so a couple of things. Now, there are some telemedicine companies that are okay with you being abroad. That said, it's not easy to tell you that you should just go apply to these companies and they'll let you, because they can choose to not let you. They might have different recruiters do it. For example, I have friends who are doing teledoc, and teledoc doesn't seem to be too concerned with you being abroad as long as you're not permanently living abroad. I think if you become a permanent resident or a citizen of another country and you don't have any residency or citizenship in the US, then it becomes an issue. The other concern I have with that, if you do that, then the malpractice you have may not really protect you. So in that regard, I think it's good to have some sort of access, some sort of a place where you can say, well, I'm technically mostly based out of the US. So I know Teladoc is okay with it. Roman generally is okay with it. Nurx is a telemedicine company that does mostly women's health. They're okay with it. There are a ton of smaller companies like that. Parsley Health, which mostly does functional medicine. There is Hims and Hers. Basically, the companies that are mostly charging patients cash and they're not really utilizing insurance or Medicare and Medicaid, they don't really care. The issue with Medicare and Medicaid, and this is totally hotly debated. There's no rule, there's no law. It's like all the rules and regulations are totally open to interpretation. It does not mean that if you have your own practice, you cannot be abroad and still bill Medicare. The rule is that you need to be in the US to bill, but there are so many different exceptions to that rule. So it's just not as straightforward as it might seem. So those are some of the names that I can give you, but I don't think that's going to do justice, because really each telemedicine company can be totally okay with you being abroad. And one of the ways to do that is to just really reach out to the recruiter and say, I'm still in the US, I'll be there, but I'm also going to be abroad and I'm going to do some of that. To me, there is not a lot of value in working for these companies if I constantly have to go through this song and dance routine, as they say. You know, for example, I was with a telemedicine company right now, well-known telemedicine company. They were totally okay with me being abroad, and all of a sudden, they sent me it's a document I have to fill out in my physician page, and it asked, you know, if you're abroad, you need to let us know because you're not allowed to be abroad. So then I reached out to the medical director, and she's like, "Yep, you cannot be abroad." It's like, okay, obviously. I understand. I mean, they want to protect themselves. So that said, the term concierge, so kind of like, okay, what about just doing it concierge style? I think there's a huge opportunity to just charge people cash directly. I call it cash pay telemedicine. I call it cash pay virtual medicine, virtual practice, and obviously there's a lot more people who are looking for telemedicine than there are services that are provided, even though it might not seem that way. Most of us are licensed in states that are very well represented. So New York, Arizona, Texas, California. But you look at Idaho, you look at Nebraska. I mean, you can get a state license there for much cheaper. And really, it's unbelievable how much access is still required. And especially if you can set yourself apart a little bit and say, I am a virtual primary care physician, or I will do women's health, I will do virtual gyne, I will do PCOS, I will do anything else, mental health, anything that you want to maybe specialize in. it's just going to make it so much easier for you to engage in any kind of marketing. So what I mean by that, it's probably going to be easier for you to purchase an ad word on Google to advertise under PCOS care or pelvic pain syndrome or interstitial cystitis, whatever terminology, anything like that. I think you're going to do a chronic cystitis, chronic UTI. You're probably going to do a better. It's going to be cheaper for you to purchase those AdWords and get your name in front of customers. And it's going to be a much easier platform, and you know what you're going to get. But I think just as much, the virtual telemedicine, maybe SteadyMD. SteadyMD is they're pretty much setting themselves up to do mostly primary care. But I've applied to them. I've been in contact with them. They're a great team, but I just don't think they're doing it the way maybe you and I would be thinking about doing it. Just easy, simple, contact me, text me, message me. We'll just kind of talk about your conditions. We'll kind of gauge how you're doing. So in that regard, I think if you set something up for yourself, especially Barcelona is a little more expensive, obviously, than Santiago de Compostela, but I think you can get enough traction and get enough income and then experiment with different price points.
Yeah. Now, what about, how do you order labs and imaging and things like that?
So all of that is very straightforward. It's really no different than, right. So
I'm not doing it on Amwell or MD Live now.
You're not doing it?
I'm not ordering labs or imaging or anything on those two platforms.
Yeah, let me take you through it. So probably one of the most common scenarios would be, here's a patient who needs to have some blood tests done. And you're like, well, how do I do it? I don't have anything. First of all, any lab, any electronic health record, for example, I have signed up with Acute Health, AKUTE. Acute Health is a telemedicine platform that I use for my own private telemedicine patients. And it's very straightforward in the sense that I just basically send a requisition to LabQuest or Quest Diagnostic or any of those telemedicine, any of those lab companies, and they basically just the patient gets it. I have a portal. I can go check it. As far as imaging, imaging is also fairly straightforward. Timmy, I'm going to mute you for a second. I think there's a little bit of background noise. As far as imaging studies, so there's a lot of different imaging centers where they will either give you an electronic token, so you can just go on their website, order whatever you need, and you're done. They have their own software. Or what a lot of these new telemedicine platforms like Acute Health do, there's a little PDF that they'll print out. So you'll say, I want to order MRI of the knee, non-contrast. So that's probably not going to cost somebody more than $300, right? If you do insurance, it's $1,500. And so then they fax that in for you to the imaging center. So now they have a requisition, boom, MRI is ordered. That MRI is going to get faxed back to you, and you'll have the results. So in that sense, it's pretty easy these days to do any kind of imaging. Of course, pharmacy ordering is the same thing. So on Acute Health, there's a pharmacy tab. I can just click on the pharmacy, Walgreens in Los Angeles, and I just send the prescription in for the patient.
That's great. How long does it? I mean, if you're going to do that kind of medicine, you have to set up an LLC while you do that, right? How long does it take to go through that process to be a business? And what do you do about all the countries? Like, if you're going to accept patients from different countries, what do you do?
So if you're going to take patients from different countries, you obviously wouldn't be able to enter a patient-doctor relationship with them. So I recommend if you're going to do any patients from different countries, I would actually do that under like a health coaching brand, kind of like what Tiffany is talking about. But I probably would not be doing it under because you're not licensed in that country. Now, the country may not have any problems with you doing it, but it just doesn't make any sense. As far as the turnaround time, you don't have to have an LLC. It depends on your state. Most states don't require you to have an S Corp, LLC, even a professional corporation. You can actually practice medicine directly if you're a private entity. Like if you are a physician, you can just set up a sole proprietorship. So you don't need any of that other protection. And I think people kind of confuse this because they say, no, an S Corp or a C Corp or an LLC is going to protect me. Well, no, because you're going to get sued as a physician. Your business is never going to get sued. You're the one who gave out the clinical stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of physicians these days are sort of interested and excited about kind of going abroad, right? Doing something from abroad. And I think if you're going to do that, just you have to think a little bit outside the box, because for a lot of probably good and bad reasons, I think a lot of the industry in healthcare is trying to make sure that physicians stay in that particular state. There's a lot of federal, state type of legislature that's being passed in that regard. But for me, if I'm a physician, I have clinical knowledge, it is absolutely ridiculous that I cannot go to any other country, translate that knowledge immediately in that country, and be able to practice. This is not selling people an iPhone. This is somebody's health. This is not something I would fuck around with. And I think we're not taking that seriously in some regards. And as physicians, we're sort of like dropped down to the level of like, oh, well, you're not that important. Well, I mean, I think that kind of can seem like that, but remember, I can always set up shop and just be a health coach, and I can give somebody plenty of advice on how to manage their PCOS, even if they're from India. They could be from Portugal. They could be from any country, and I can give them clinical advice on that, and nobody can step into that relationship. So Tiffany says, I'm planning on getting liability insurance for my coaching business. Are you familiar with any companies that you would recommend? Yeah, that's going to be harder to find. And in fact, so I'm going to give you two answers. One, a lot of companies set themselves up to give you liability insurance for your health coaching practice, and they oversell you. They almost try to be in this shady middle ground where they're like, well, it's clinical. You could get sued for like $1 million. Well, there's never been a case like that. So I am not a fan of that, and I wouldn't go that direction. A great person to talk to is Ray. I'll put that information. I'll see where I can put it. I'll put in the show descriptions once I publish it. But Ray is a great attorney in that regard. He'll give you all the information as far as like what you actually need. You pretty much just need errors and omissions, and pretty much any large insurance group, Mutual and all these other companies will give you errors and omissions insurance, and it costs you, I think, like $20 a month, or probably if that. And I personally wouldn't get. I've written about this. I've created some podcast episodes on this. In a way, when you over-insure, you're actually inviting somebody to sue you. When you're not, the chance of you getting sued by somebody who you've engaged with over many months and maybe several years, and giving individualized kind of coaching advice, but you're not telling them like, no, you must never touch that, and you must take this supplement because it's gonna, I don't know, grow out your hair all of a sudden. It's unlikely that this person's going to go after you, sue you, or anything like that. But I mean, obviously, if you have other people in the household, you have investments and stuff like that, and there's a worry, sure, by all means. But again, you gotta go through an attorney, so that the attorney can tell you what kind of malpractice, or well, not malpractice, what kind of insurance coverage protection you need. And oftentimes, like I said, there are companies that are setting themselves up, and they're not as honest as they should be. But Tiffany, I think it's great. I mean, obviously, it's something that's close to my heart. I'm doing my heart health coaching, and I'm charging a pretty penny for that. And I think there's a good reason why I'm doing it. I think what I can help somebody prevent in the future through heart health coaching is very powerful. And at the same time, I think if I was a cardiologist, I could probably do something really incredible for them. But there's always this huge middle space. So you got the specialists, and then you got the patient who at the bottom is kind of like looking online. And then in between, there's this huge space. And I think there's always different types of services that you can provide someone. And you just got to be honest with yourself. Are you providing them value, or you're not? I'll keep an eye on for the attorney's info. Yeah. I forgot the information, but really good attorney. In fact, I think his wife does a lot of the marketing for people. And that's probably another thing. Everybody worries about marketing and finding clients. I think you got to get creative. As I wrote about Sesame Health or Sesame Care, there's a lot of websites where they essentially will advertise you for free. You don't have to do anything. They're already marketing. And so what they do is they set up a website, and they say, hey, if you're a cash doctor, come on our website. Once you dish out your service, however much you want to charge, we'll take 20% off the top, or 10% off the top. So they will do all the marketing, they will do all the heavy lifting, and I just got to go in and see the patients that land on the Sesame Care website. I did experiment with it, and I did share my experience on one of my podcast episodes, and I think it's good, but to me, it's a little bit of that baby step towards just doing my own thing without anybody else involved. Giving up even 20%, probably not a big deal, but there's always that other middle person, middle man, middle woman, middle whoever. And I think just having that direct contact with a client is incredible. And remember, everybody else is doing it. Like, we have this gig economy, we have this decentralized economy, we have globalization. There's no reason for me, no matter what the state medical board says, there's other options. I can go to other places and do other things. And Tiffany asks, any recs for where to go to find those state requirements with regard to coaching? I'm in North Carolina. So probably that's going to be difficult. Yeah, the last place you want to go is your state medical board. If you go to your state medical board, they're basically going to tell you, no, you can't do it. You're a doctor. And that's incorrect. So they don't have any authority over you if you don't practice in the space of a physician. You could go to the dietetics board. The problem with that is they're going to say, well, if you're not a dietitian, you can't give that advice. So it's really difficult. I think the answer to that is there's no place to look. You can look at old cases, malpractice cases, to see if anything like that has come. You could go to the not a business bureau. It's it's called like professional business department. Each state has one. I know because I got written up by California's business. I wasn't board certified through American Board of Family Medicine. I was board certified through National Board of Physicians and Surgeons. And because other websites like Vitals and Medscape had listed me as a family medicine doctor, I had never claimed to be, like, I had no reason to claim that I'm a family medicine doctor. I didn't have any online services at the time. So they came after me and fined me $500 for falsely advertising myself as a family medicine doctor, because American Board of Family Medicine has taken the term family medicine and they basically copyrighted it. So if anybody calls themselves family medicine who's not certified with ABFM, you're basically infringing on that licensure, which is silly, of course. But I paid my $500. I had to hire an attorney to contact all these companies who were writing stuff about me on their websites and say, hey, you can't write what you're writing. And they just said, fuck you. We can write whatever we want. We're not going to change it. But I mean, yeah, it's these are the headaches. Again, I do think there is a lot of protection meant to be there for the patient, so that if somebody's a family medicine doctor, you want to know that they went to a proper medical school, residency, they have the education, they have some sort of licensure. I get that. But I think sometimes it's just overdone, and I think those are the difficult parts. But just trust yourself, Tiffany, that the information is out there. You're not all of a sudden going to go to jail. Nothing like that's going to happen. If something happens, you can probably communicate with the board and say, hey, really, I did my due diligence. Here's a document I kept of everything. I researched this topic really well, and it looks like I can do it. Ooh, I know where to go. The Health Coaching Federation. There is always a health coaching federation, health coaching group in every state. And they're sadly, they're the ones who are also pushing for licensure for health coaches, which is really backwards, because then they're going to be limited, but everybody wants to be licensed. And so that's going to be a great source for information. For example, I'm right now going through the course of functional nutrition to the Nutrition Alliance. And so I'm learning about functional nutrition, and they are part of this bigger board of functional nutrition coaches and nutrition coaches and health coaches. And so that place would be a great resource for you. And I definitely would recommend that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I am going to sign off, and I really appreciate your input. This has been helpful.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
I'm jet lagged. I'm going to go to bed.
Oh, yeah. Go rest.
Thanks.
You look great. You don't
Bye.
look jet lagged, but go. Knock out. Yeah, I'm actually, so I'm in Santiago de Compostela. She's in Barcelona. Barcelona can be a little bit more expensive, but definitely the culture, the kind of things that you can do, it's a lot more kind of like, maybe like a bigger metropolitan city in the US. You can definitely have all the crazy different types of restaurants with ethnic foods. And if you stay there long term, it's not difficult to find a place to live. But again, as a physician, as somebody who pays taxes to the US, those are some of the things I always worry about, right? Like, I don't want to become a resident of another country. Like, I am in my Santiago de Compostela apartment that I bought here in Spain, but I don't want to be here full time. I don't want to be a tax resident of Spain because, well, Spain is very tough on their taxes, and the US is different. The US doesn't tax you very much. So when you just think about taxes, it's not that high. But unfortunately, the US has also created a lot of non-tax stuff that are mandatory. And so in a way, that's their taxes, right? If you have to have health insurance, well, not anymore, actually, right? The insurance mandate disappeared, I believe, after a couple of years after President Obama left. But if it's mandatory, then it's technically a tax. If you have to have car insurance, it's technically a tax. Here, my car insurance only costs me $150 a year. In the US, things like $150 a month, or $100 a month. I know it's quite a lot more. So I think those are kind of things to keep in mind, especially if you're thinking about where you're going to set up shop and be a resident. For me, the most interesting thing is live abroad, have this digital nomad life, have the ability to travel. I can be in California, but then I can move maybe to New York. I can be in Arizona. I can be in Florida. I can be in Washington. Maybe do some tax strategizing that way so I don't have as much state tax or sales tax in Oregon. And then later, if that's something that's exciting to you, that you like, you can always kind of go abroad and try that out. That's what I did in 2016. I realized I had saved up enough money in my investments that I could be financially independent. So I emailed my financial advisor and I said, hey, I think I'm good. Like, I don't think I need to save any more money. And he's like, nope, you're done. Like, technically it should run the investments should give off enough passive income that you should be able to not work anymore. And so I said, all right, this is it. I gotta take advantage of that. So I had given my resignation to Kaiser at the time. They wanted me to stay on and do a little bit more telemedicine. So I said, sure. I did a little bit more telemedicine with them. And then I moved to Barcelona, actually, for 3 months. In Barcelona, I stayed there for 3 months. I was paying about $1,400 a month for an apartment on Airbnb, obviously. So probably triple, quadruple the price of a regular apartment at the time. Even though nowadays you probably got to spend like $800, $900 for a nice apartment. That was 2017. And I did it. I did telemedicine. I did American Well. I did Kaiser. I did Teladoc. I did Roman. I was doing a few other telemedicine companies, Dial Care, and a couple other ones. And it was really nice. It was really nice being abroad. And then suddenly, I think it just sort of started coming up that like, hey, you can't be abroad. Actually, it was only with American Well. I should be on. Actually, yeah, it was only American Well. American Well is like, hey, you can't be abroad. We saw that you logged in from a Spanish thing that I had no idea. I was like, why would they care? Because I was like, I had a ticket going back to the US in a couple of months. And then later, yeah, obviously with my state medical board investigations and all that stuff, I had to drop a lot of the telemedicine companies. And now I think, yeah, like, I can always go back, right? I was actually I have plans to go back to the US right now, where September 2022, and have plans on going back to Los Angeles. I'm hopefully going to go back to Portland for a little bit, visit my apartment, make sure the walls are still standing. And, one of these, what do they call them? Not recruiters, job placement agencies, Tracy's White, really great company, great team of ladies who work there. They actually emailed me and they said, hey, we got a couple of jobs lined up. If you're available in Los Angeles, we're going to hook you up. And I thought, every time I go back to the US, even if I'm going to be there just for a couple of weeks, it's not a bad idea for me just to do a little bit. And I think for the most part, it's just for me to kind of stay in the system, just to understand how things are different, how things have changed. But also to just give myself a chance to kind of reflect, like, what is it that I like about medicine? What is it that I don't like? Why don't I like it? Like, how much of my ego is there? How much of it is like me just being afraid? How much of it is just a headache? How much of it is the nuisance? How much of it is the customer service? Whatever. I kind of feel like I just need to, at 44, I got such a potentially long career ahead of me. It's good for me to just kind of expose myself and reflect on it. But there's no rush, right? Like, that's the thing I'm recognizing. As long as I have enough money to live, what is the rush for me to go and work and make a lot of money and save a lot of money? Some of the coaching clients that I have, physician coaching, career coaching clients that I have, those are some of the most important topics. Like, why do you need the money? You're not sending your daughter to private school, okay? Why do you need the money? You're living in India right now. Or why do you need the money? You don't have any dependents and you want to travel. You want to go teach. So why do you need 5,000, 10,000 a month more, right? 20,000 a month of income. So asking yourself that question For me, it makes me realize like I don't need it. I don't need that amount of income. And instead, what I can do is focus maybe these next 5 years on finding something that I love, that I enjoy, where I think I'm fulfilled, where I believe that I'm offering value to my client. So I'm always the most important. I'm very selfish. So I always find myself to be the most important entity, because if I can take care of myself and kind of figure my shit out, then I'm probably going to be less of a nuisance to other people and potentially be more helpful. So am I fulfilled? Great. Now, can I offer value to people? Am I just pushing medicine on them? Am I just shuffling them around in the system? That's no good. But if I'm educating them, empowering them, helping them with their health journey, great. And then finally, like, is it something financially stable, financially sustainable, or in any way sustainable, right? Is it good for the environment? Is there enough money coming in? It's fair. And when I think about these things, I don't have to just do that in clinical medicine. I don't have to do that just by being in a brick and mortar practice. I certainly can be more creative and do it like virtual. I can do a virtual telemedicine practice. And then I can do the health coaching. And I think health coaching can be so broad for physicians, from offering second opinions. Just offer a second opinion. If you're a family medicine doctor, you've seen enough patients who go, I'm about to get my neck fused. I'm about to have my ankle fused. I'm about to have my ulnar nerve relocated, or whatever called that surgery is called, translocated, transplanted, whatever the fuck. You can give them second opinions. Like, you don't have to be an orthopedic surgeon. And the reason you cannot be an orthopedic surgeon, because no orthopedic surgeon will do that. Like, one thing I think people are having a really hard time understanding is, if I am not a heart health coach, nobody else will. You know who's a heart health coach right now? People who are selling snake oil. Literally, I know this because I know every single website that I've already Googled in order to run my advertisement campaign, and I see what they're selling. They're saying you should do breathing techniques and meditate, which is great, but that's not everything. That's not enough. I don't find that that's enough. The person should still have a discussion about statins. Is a statin appropriate? Maybe you should be on one. Maybe you need a PICSAC9 inhibitor, the PSCK9 inhibitor. I call it PICSAC. And maybe we should do another heart risk scoring calculation for you. So a lot of this stuff is kind of missing. And so for me, health coaching can be super, super broad, from offering second opinions to just interpreting labs, nothing else. I'm just going to interpret labs for you, to being somebody's, one of the physician coaches, physician client, career coaches, clients I was working with, he wanted to build this basically like hand-holding for patients, just to get them through the medical system. Like, imagine they get like a serious diagnosis. Like, what do you do? Where do you go? How do you get a second opinion? How do you have your images read? How do you collect your images? Where the hell are your pathology reports? Can you give it to another physician to read your pathology report? Where do you go? And he just kind of wanted to be that person to kind of hold their hand through it and just guide them through the system. I mean, that's awesome. That, to me, that's like, where is that? We don't really have that, right? I mean, yeah, we got some of these social workers that are kind of insurance-based and stuff like that, but not quite as good as I would like. I think we can do better. Tiffany, you got lots of questions. Do you know of anyone who has done a hybrid telemedicine and coaching practice where they may order studies and prescribe for patients located in their licensed state and then offer coaching for folks in other states? Or would it be better to keep those businesses separate? Right. No, I don't know anyone that's doing it. I'm the one that's doing it. So I'm doing both. I'm very curious about all this and have lots of ideas. I love it. Well, Tiffany, guess what? We need physicians like you, right? And the reason we need physicians like you is not because we have a bad healthcare system, because the current healthcare system can only do so much. And like I said, there is a huge gap. Here's the patient-doctor visit, and then here's the patient at the bottom without any access. There's a huge gap in the middle. All of us need to fill it, from physicians to nurses to people who have never had any healthcare experience but want to be coaches, to home aid nurses or whatever. So But I do think we need a creative mind, and we have that as physicians. We definitely have that. We've been problem solvers in every single clinic we've worked in. We've been problem solvers in every single way. We've talked to people on the phone about prior authorizations and come up with clever ways of getting something approved. Anyway, so I don't know of any physician who's doing both at the same time. In fact, what I have talked about, and remember, I do run a lot of this stuff by other attorneys because I myself am covered by Medical Justice League, which means I pay them a retainer every year. And I get to ask them as many questions as I have. They make sure my practice and everything that I do is legit on the up and up. I have good relationships with other attorneys. So in that regard, well, I'm not saying you should trust what I'm saying, but in that regard, I trust what I'm saying because if I feel like I've run it by someone at least. But I don't know anybody who's doing both. And the reason I am doing both, because I actually think this will protect you. There's three different, I've talked about this, like the trifecta of your career, right? So at the top here, you have basically you as an entity consulting and just taking the information that you have and sharing it with non-clinical people. So if you're a family medicine physician and somebody out there wants to build a healthcare related product, they should be able to ask you questions. If they need to run a, let's say something that's written and they want to have a physician proofread it, you should be able to do that. And this is for obviously physicians like us who just want to have these other options. So this is the top. And then here at the bottom, this other part of the triangle, this other corner, is you doing traditional medicine, whether it's you work in the urgent care, in a physical urgent care, whether you do the overflow in the ER or the fast track, whether you're doing aesthetic care, doing Botox injections or whatever, or doing telemedicine, or doing asynchronous telemedicine, synchronous telemedicine, video, audio, whatever. And then here at this part of the triangle, this last part, is everything else where you're actually helping the client, the patient, but not from the patient-doctor relationship perspective. So actually doing this all at the same time protects you in so many ways. Because imagine a patient comes to you and they're like, I'm about to move from, Dr. Shori, I'm about to move from California, I'm moving to Texas. I have no idea why, but they want to move to Texas. Great. Well, I can't be your doctor there because I'm not licensed there. Nor do I want to deal with the Texas or Arizona state, Texas, Arizona, and Oregon, the 3 state medical boards, which many of us probably don't ever want to deal with. And I don't want to deal with them, right? But guess what? You can still be in my coaching program. I can take you out of my clinical program. I can put you into my coaching program, and I can help you with maybe a particular problem. Now, for me, and I think Tiffany, maybe this is something you could consider. It's nice to be niche. It's nice to be specific, and I'll tell you why. I think you're a family doc, and you know, and I know, the amount of knowledge we need to have as family medicine physicians. I think we sort of downplay it a little bit because like, oh, I'm a family medicine doctor, I didn't do that much. But it's like, shit, man, there's so much stuff. Pediatric patients with hemolytic uremic syndrome, 2-month-old with fever of unknown origin, 90-year-old on Enbrel who suddenly has petechia on the lower extremities, 5-year-old who has a foreign body in the nose or the ear, damn, a 8-month-old who has a fever and abdominal tenderness, and like, oh, they have they swallowed something and now they have intussusception. They swallowed magnets, or aspiration in children, or STDs in teenagers, ectopic pregnancies, and ovarian torsion and testicular torsion, and all like this. There's a lot of stuff, and you got to know all this stuff. Like you can't not know it, right? Like you just wouldn't feel like a good family medicine doctor. But sometimes when you, in this other part that I was talking about, in this health coaching part, if you can be more niche, there's a lot more you can learn. Like, for example, what I'm learning in my heart health coaching stuff, like my own education series. I just finished reading, oh my God, massive document. The entire Framingham study and the scoring system is based off of this one behemoth of a research document. I'm reading all of that because I'm like, well, this is kind of heart health, so I need to know it. And so I've structured this for myself. But I think I'm going to be really good at this. I'm going to be really powerful in that regard. Like one of the things I was learning today, which I'm sure you guys are so excited to hear, can't wait to share it with you, is that what is that one? CRP, high sensitivity CRP. If it is elevated, it's going to give you some information, but if it's normal, it doesn't actually protect you in any way, which is really interesting. I think that's a little harder to dissect, but anyway, I'll stop because I don't want to get you guys all too excited. Nice. So you mentioned, so Tiffany here mentions that I completely agree. I'm focusing my coaching practice on sexual health. Oh, I love that. I love that. Sexual health is huge. So many telemedicine companies are a bit maybe hesitant to enter that. They're maybe quite not as knowledgeable. I have read some content from NERCs and some of their nurse practitioner members. Some of it is amazing content, really empowering, and some of it, sadly, is your traditional talk down to female patients. There's something wrong with your sexual health. I think there's a lot that you can do. One of the platforms that I have been on is Just Answer. I think I've mentioned that to you guys before. It's basically you answer medical questions. There's a lot of these platforms where you're kind of like an expert. You just answer medical questions. Obviously, it's not that lucrative because you only get a few bucks per question that you answer. But what I love about it is to see how many people are intentionally going on there because they don't want to go to a doctor. They don't trust doctors. They don't trust that if they come to me as an MD who has prescribing and surgery capabilities, that I'm actually going to choose whatever is best for them as opposed to do what is going to benefit them. And we have all experienced that in our own lives where somebody says, oh, well, I'm going to do a CT. I'll do a back surgery on you. Oh, you'll be good. You'll be great. Instead of like, no, thank you. I'm just going to manage this conservatively. So I think in this health coaching sense, from the sexual health perspective, there are programs you can create. There are online courses you can create. You can review supplements for people who want to take it, maybe educate them. You can do empowerment for young women who are getting advertised to in so many shitty ways. Sexual health for men, sexual health for teenagers, sexual health for adults, sexual health for geriatric people. So there's a lot. I love it. I think that's a fabulous space to be in. And Tiffany also says, it feels empowering to do a deep dive into a subject and develop a sense of mastery. Yeah, and I'll be honest, I think even my colleagues who are specialists, I don't feel like they even are able to do that, right? Because the field of medicine is always going to be a little bit behind as far as what's actually happening. A great example, I have to take my quarterly examinations to maintain my family medicine board certification. And I've had 2 COVID questions so far. And this is over the past 2 years. One of them was, COVID was ruled out. And so they just wanted to, so that's not really a COVID question. And then the other one was, shit, I don't remember, but it was ridiculous. It had nothing to do with COVID. And I understand because the information right now that they would have to use is obviously a bit difficult to incorporate, but medicine's behind, right? My girlfriend's specialty is rheumatology, and I think it's really complicated to know all of these things really well. She tells me there are specialists who like, hey, I'm only going to do Sjogren's, I'm only going to be a lupus expert. Now, I'm sure in their clinic they see other stuff as well, but these other specialists whom maybe she refers or consults for more complicated cases, they have decided that like, hey, the only way this is going to be sanity for me is to specialize in this. And I can certainly see that because if you're a GI doctor and you're doing colonoscopies and you're dealing with an IBD patient, and then you're dealing with somebody who's got a colostomy bag and has like eosinophilic inflammation of the ostomy site, you don't want to then jump over to an IBS patient. Like, that's really complicated. It's really hard to transition yourself. And at the same time, you probably don't want to just see IBS patients because you might just shoot yourself in the face. But I think when you can become an expert in IBS, it can be interesting because in one regard, you can educate people on how to prevent IBS, how to manage their IBS. You can review medications. You can talk to people about medications, really educate them like, hey, here's the research study. I had some of these nerdy statisticians take a look at this research study. Maybe it's not as strong as we thought, or this one's really strong. You can create self-guided courses for them. You can review applications on your website when you're the IBS expert. And then you can consult for people who are, maybe their teenager has IBS or misdiagnosed with something else. So I think, yeah, for me, that's probably going to be, I suspect, doing this heart health coaching thing I don't know if I'm going to continue with it. Obviously, all these things for me are experiments, and I'm the one doing it, right? No, I don't see anybody else doing it. So I'm like, if I'm doing it, I got to share it with my fellow physicians, which is why on most of my content, I try to keep everything just to physicians. I don't want to maybe dabble in with PAs, NPs, and podiatrists and other people. I mean, podiatrists are physicians, obviously, but it's different. Well, I guess it's not that different. It's different enough for me that I want to just keep it in the whole physician realm. And I want to experiment. I want to experiment. Is there maybe another country where I can practice medicine that I would actually love? So obviously, eventually I'll get my medical license in Mexico or Spain or Portugal or Iran or I don't know, wherever the hell else they'll let me have a medical license. I want to build my practice online to a point that, could this be sustainable for me to just do a virtual practice, do primary care virtually with people and see if that's interesting? I'll be honest, every time I run my practice and I'm like, all right, imagine you wake up today and you're going to sit in front of the same desk. It's 8 a.m., 9 a.m., whatever, and you're going to see patients, and it's primary care, and someone's going to ask you, "Oh, I'm also on metformin, and I'm on a statin, and my other doctor ordered a coronary calcium artery score, and I'm kind of worried about this and that." Would I want to do that? Would I want to take that person on, somebody who is so far out as far as like their knowledge is here, my knowledge is here, like we're so far apart that it's just going to take so much effort to bring them in? Maybe I would. I think with the right client who's interested for both of us to get closer as far as our knowledge gap, and who's willing to pay me for that amount of effort that I have to put in. I always say this, like when I go to work in an urgent care, it makes no sense that everybody's paying the same price. It's absurd. Yeah, here I have a pediatric patient with a fever of unknown origin with 2 parents and maybe a grandma in tow. That's going to be such a more complicated workup for me. I got to do so much more thinking. And yet I'm being paid the same. For that hour that I'm working, I'm being paid the same. And then I have a UTI, right? So, and then I have a chronic UTI afterwards. And I have to figure out like, well, I probably shouldn't prescribe this person antibiotics. I should do a culture, and I should, I shouldn't rely on a dip. I should send it for analysis. I should have in my differential diagnosis some sort of malignancy like bladder cancer, kidney cancer, or whatever. And so in those regards, I think there is that doesn't work, and it's not sustainable. So I do want to build that into my practice. I want to be able to charge other people more money, depending on, and I can, right? Because Medicaid doesn't allow you, Medicare doesn't allow you, Blue Cross doesn't allow you, all the Blues don't allow you to do any of that. But when it's your own practice, you can. And you can choose to kick somebody out of your practice. You can choose to focus on other people and market yourself differently. In the heart health coaching, I do think I'm going to continue with it just for the sake of proving that concept to myself, and probably, hopefully, take you guys on a journey to kind of see what that could be like. Could you do heart health coaching and really become a heart health master? All right, well, maybe you could, maybe you can learn quite a lot about heart health coaching. And what would it look like? What difference could you make for this person? And who comes to you? That's what I really want to find out. Why would somebody come to me? I've already obviously have had some interactions with individuals who have come to me, and I have a really good sense why. I think some of it is they just don't feel connected to their cardiologist, and they cannot afford their cardiologist if they had to pay, if they couldn't, okay, so they can't see another cardiologist that's not in their system because it would be way too expensive for them. But they are willing to come see me because they feel that there's probably not as much bias. And they read my content, they see my personality, and they're like, all right, this guy's not completely full of shit. So maybe I can listen to him and kind of, he might be all right. He might be all right. And they can have a discussion. And they also understand that I understand their other medical conditions. So that's another one that I think they come to me for. The other big one is the bedside manner. If you're a cardiologist, the fact that you're a cardiologist probably makes you think that the person should trust you because you're a cardiologist. And why would you be wrong? And if you're wrong, well, it's just the way it's supposed to be. But I think when you're a family medicine physician, or maybe not even a physician, and you're doing this heart health coaching stuff, but you're really genuinely knowledgeable and are putting in your due diligence, not only will you put in more due diligence because you're not a cardiologist and you're like, shit, I don't want to be wrong in something, but you might also not rely on your past experiences as a cardiologist or your degree. So instead, you offer really good customer service. patient, tell me, well, customer, not patient, right? Because it's coaching. What are you worried about? What are you trying to figure out? Well, my main concern is my doctor wants to do a bypass, right? I don't want to have a bypass done. And the reason is I think I can turn my atherosclerosis around. I think I can do this. I think I can do that. I'm really afraid of surgery. I don't want the surgery. I don't want to get depressed. I know people get depressed after the cabbage. So maybe they're talking about that. And then you really are diving into totally other stuff. You're like, what are you afraid of? Like, let's talk about what you're actually afraid of. What surgical complication are you afraid of that might happen? And they might say, I don't know, I can't get an erection, I can't have sex again, or my energy level will go down, I can't run my business anymore, or I'm actually afraid of dementia. And the reason there's a lot of cases of dementia or mild cognitive impairment in people with cabbage or PCI is because we believe that there's some little pieces of atherosclerotic plaque that goes into the brain and causes mini strokes. That's what they say. So, okay, well, let's talk about your life. Let's talk about your life overall. Like, what's your functional capacity now? What do you think might happen if you don't do an intervention? What if you do get a heart attack and you actually develop congestive heart failure, or would have to have a heart transplant because of severe wall incompetence? And then you're discussing those things, and then maybe they bring up something else. Maybe they saw their dad struggle with the disease. Maybe they saw their uncle struggle. And again, these things, I know for some of us is sort of PTSD and a sore topic, because you're like, I don't really want to do any of that. I just want to be an expert. And you can, right? You can totally be an expert. But what I'm trying to do in my heart health coaching practice is not at all solve their problem, not at all tell them what they're going to do. That would defeat the whole purpose of being a heart health coach. The coaching part, and this is what I do even in my career coaching, is to engage the client and ask the right questions. Kind of, what do they call it? Like, what is that term? Like something questioning, whatever. Basically trying to get them to understand where they are at and what help and support. Yes, thank you. Motivational interviewing. Good job, Tiffany. 2 stars. I would give you stars, but I don't know if they'll let me. So motivational interviewing is nice and is powerful, because the person, chances are, they're going to leave. They're going to walk away feeling empowered. They're going to walk away feeling like they have more knowledge. And my goal is to eventually get them out of my practice. I don't want these people here forever. If Tiffany's doing sexual health coaching, whatever it might be, performance anxiety or pelvic pain during intercourse, or preparing yourself for sexual for sex with your partner after a pregnancy, whatever. Words are lost on me today. And I think all of that can be really great. But if you're not empowering these people and helping them, where should they go for information? What information is really good? What should they do with their symptoms? Like, I have pain, 10 out of 10. All right, let's step back. Let's talk about pain. Let's talk about, are you really in that kind of pain? And what does pain mean to you? How does pain limit you? Like, diving into some of that can be really fascinating. I think there's some really good content on there, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If Tiffany wants to be a sexual health coach, and if I want to be a heart health coach, all that information is already there. We don't have to reinvent shit. I could go on a YouTube channel from a preventative cardiologist and just listen to all her stuff, watch all her videos. And what's difficult, though, what's going to take time, is for me to take those pieces of information, organize it well into a spreadsheet, into several documents, reference those research studies so that I make sure everything is on the up and up, and then figure out how can I have this communication with the right patient. So then I also have to make sure that I'm choosing the right client, right? I don't want to just have any kind of random client there. So that's really dove into that. Tiffany, I'll let you ask any final questions that you have. This was great. Really enjoyed this, my first one. Thanks for being there, Tiffany. You're my homie. Help me out. And yeah, for the rest of you guys who watch this, definitely hop on every Friday. I'm going to do this, as long as I'm alive and as long as there's light out there and the internet works. Best of luck, Tiffany. Reach out to me if you need any help, if you need any sources. I will definitely send you that attorney. I will put it on the video description. I'm going to upload this pretty quickly. And then in the YouTube video description, it'll be there. I think I have your contact information. If not, you can send me an email, drmo@digitalnomadphysician. I think I do, but I'll make sure I'll send you Jay's information. Really good guy. I really enjoy him. There's another attorney. I forgot her name. I've been in touch with her on LinkedIn, and I'll definitely send that as well. All right, guys. Thanks for being here. Take care.